how to use real estate to avoid W-2 taxes. Oh, and stick around, I'll be giving you pro tips throughout this video. Let's roll the video.
All right, let's get right into it. This is how to use real estate to avoid W-2 taxes, and it's brought to you by our friends at Real Estate Ranked IQ. We're about to break down exactly how high earners can legally, and I mean legally, slash the taxes they pay on their main income. So, you want to learn the legal strategies to lower your W-2 tax bill? Well, you're in the right place. Stick around till the end, because if you've ever stared at your paycheck, watched that tax number get yanked out and thought, there has to be a better way, well, there is, and we're going to show you exactly how it's done. Okay, so here's the plan. First, we'll tackle what I call the two-bucket tax problem. Then, we'll look at the gateways past the passive wall. After that, we'll dive into two key paths, the rep status and the short-term rental exception. Then comes the fun part, a real-world playbook showing a massive loss. And finally, we'll cover the really important stuff, the rules, the risks, and something called recapture. All right, Section 1, the two-bucket tax problem. Look, to win any game, you have to know the rules, right? And trust me, tax planning for high earners is a game. The absolute foundation of this entire strategy hinges on you understanding this one core concept, the two-bucket problem. So here's how the IRS sees your money. Thanks to Section 469 of the tax code, they've created what are called the Passive Activity Loss Rules, or PALs. Just think of it like this. They split your income into two big buckets. In one bucket, you've got your non-passive income. That's your W-2 salary, your 1099 contract work, trading profits, you name it. In the other bucket, you've got your passive income, which is where most of your rental real estate income goes. Now here's the kicker. The IRS built a giant wall between these two buckets. Any losses you have in that passive real estate bucket are generally stuck there. They can't just jump over the wall and reduce the taxes you owe on your main job's income. That's the problem we're here to solve. Now, it is absolutely critical to understand the kind of loss we're talking about here. We're not talking about an operational loss, where your property is actually cash negative and you're losing money from your bank account. No way. We are talking about a paper loss. It's a loss that exists only on paper for tax purposes. You can be cash positive, making money every month, but still show a massive loss on your tax return. How? It's all thanks to powerful, non-cash deductions, and the big one is depreciation. So how do you create this giant paper loss, especially in year one? The magic tool here is a cost segregation study. You see, the IRS says you have to depreciate a residential building over 27.5 years and a commercial one over 39 years. But think about it, a building isn't just one thing.
Pro tip for your STR tax win. Track your average nights and keep it under 7 by sprinkling in short midweek stays.
It's one thing. It's full of components, carpets, appliances, cabinets, light fixtures, all stuff that wears out way faster than the foundation. A cost segregation study is an engineering-based analysis that basically picks the building apart on paper. It identifies those shorter life components so you can accelerate their depreciation, sometimes taking a huge write-off in the very first year using bonus depreciation. This front-loads all your deductions, giving you that massive paper loss right away, even while the property is putting cash in your pocket. Okay, so let's recap. We've got this awesome giant paper loss sitting in our passive bucket, and over in the non-passive bucket, we've got all our W-2 income getting taxed. And between them is that big wall the IRS built. So, are there any secret doors or gateways through that wall? You bet there are. Essentially, there are three main gateways that let your rental losses cross that barrier. You've got the $25,000 allowance, the real estate professional status, and the short-term rental exception. Now, the first one is, well, it's nice, but for most high earners, it's a non-starter. This first gateway is the active participation $25,000 allowance. The idea is simple. If you actively participate in managing your rentals and your income is low enough, the IRS lets you deduct up to $25K in losses against your regular income. But here's the catch, and it's a big one for high earners. Look at that adjusted gross income threshold. The deduction starts to phase out once you make $100,000, and by the time you hit $150,000 in AGI, poof, it's completely gone. For the very people this tax planning is for, this door is usually slammed shut. And that's exactly why the other two gateways are so incredibly powerful. Okay, on to path number 1. This is for the serious players. It's called Achieving Real Estate Professional Status, or REP status. And let's be super clear, this has nothing to do with having a realtor's license.
Pro tip, treat withholding as a free financing lever. If your pro forma shows big losses, adjust your W-4 now and fund upgrades that boost ADR or rent.
This is a specific tax designation from the IRS, and you have to prove you qualify by meeting some really strict tests every single year. So how do you qualify for rep status? You've got to pass 2 big annual tests. Test number 1, you have to perform more than 750 hours in real estate trades or businesses. That's a lot of time. Test number 2, and this is the one that trips most people up, more than half, over 50% of your total working time for the entire year has to be in those real estate activities. You can see why this is almost impossible for someone with a demanding full-time W-2 job, right? Now, there is a common workaround. If one spouse can qualify as the rep and you file your taxes jointly, the whole household can benefit. But wait, there's one more crucial piece. See, just getting rep status isn't the finish line. That just gets you in the door. You also have to prove you materially participated in your rental activities. This is you proving to the IRS that you are genuinely, actively involved. There are a few ways to do this, but some of the most common material participation tests are spending more than 500 hours on that specific activity, doing substantially all the work yourself, or spending at least 100 hours on it and making sure that no one, not a property manager, not a handyman, spends more time on it than you do. You have to be in the driver's seat. Okay, let's be honest, rep status is a heavy lift, especially if you have a demanding W-2 job. But what if there was another way? A more accessible path that doesn't rely on those tough time tests, but instead changes the nature of the game itself? Well, there is. And this is the powerful alternative for W-2 earners, the short-term rental exception. This one little rule changes everything. Here it is. If the average guest stay in your property is 7 days or less, the IRS says it's not technically a rental activity under those tricky passive loss rules we talked about. We're talking about your classic Airbnb or VRBO model. Because of that short average stay, the activity is no longer automatically treated as passive. It's a total game changer. So let's get this straight, because this is the key. With a short-term rental, you get to completely bypass the difficult real estate professional status tests. You don't need the 750 hours, you don't need the more than half your time rule. The only thing you have to do to make your paper losses non-passive and use them to wipe out your W-2 or 1099 income is meet one of those material participation tests. This is why the STR versus long-term rental debate is so huge when it comes to tax planning for high earners. All right, enough theory. Theory is great, but money is better. Let's put some real numbers to this and walk through a playbook to see just how powerful this strategy can be. Okay, let's set the stage. Let's say you go out and buy a property for $600,000. You're going to operate it as a short-term rental, and you're planning to self-manage it so you can hit those material participation hours. So right after you close, you hire an engineering firm to do a cost segregation study. They work their magic, and by accelerating that depreciation, you generate a massive first-year paper loss of $200,000. Remember, this is a loss on paper, created for tax purposes. The property itself could be making you money every single month. And here it is, the big payoff. Let's say your W-2 income for the year is $200,000. Because you used the short-term rental strategy and you met the material participation test, your $200,000 paper loss is now non-passive, which means it can march right over that wall and directly offset your $200,000 of W-2 income. What's your taxable income for the year? Pretty close to zero. That is how you achieve huge W-2 tax savings with real estate. So to recap, here's the playbook step by step. 1. Pick your path. Are you going for rep status or the STR exception? 2. Acquire a property, but make sure you model the potential depreciation first. 3. Set it up professionally, use an LLC, separate bank accounts. 4. Execute that cost segregation study. 5. And this is non-negotiable. You have to track your time and participation religiously. And 6. Plan your exit strategy from day one, because you need to know how to handle recapture and a potential 1031 exchange down the road. Now, I know this all sounds almost too good to be true, but this isn't some shady fly-by-night loophole. It's written into the tax code. But that also means there are very strict rules, some real risks, and a very important concept called recapture that you absolutely have to understand to do this right and stay on the right side of the IRS. So let's talk about the fine print. First up, depreciation recapture. This is a big one. When you sell the property, the IRS basically says, hey, remember all those tax deductions we gave you for depreciation? We want to tax that now. You have to plan for it. Second, your records have to be audit-proof. Meticulous time logs, calendars, receipts prove your material participation. Third, there are at-risk rules and basis limitations. Basically, you can't deduct more in losses that you have economically at risk in the deal. And what happens if you have a bad year and don't qualify? Well, your losses become suspended passive losses. They're not gone forever, they just carry forward until you either qualify again or sell the property. Under the entire disposition rules, when you sell, you can often release all those built-up suspended losses. And finally, a great tool to manage that recapture tax is the 1031 exchange, which lets you defer taxes by rolling your proceeds into a new, similar property. So there you have it. That's the playbook. It's a powerful combination of choosing the right kind of property, using smart, engineered tax deductions, and backing it all up with diligent, tracked participation to legally shield your hard-earned income. These strategies are very real, they are incredibly powerful, and they absolutely require discipline. So the big question is, are you ready to stop just paying taxes and start turning that money into real equity?
Hey, if you want more insights like this, make sure you subscribe.